What messed you up for the rest of your life? When I was 9, my teacher, Mrs. Palmer, accused me of cheating on a math test because I got a perfect score. She said there was no way a kid like me could solve those problems without help. She was standing at the front of the class holding my test paper and said some students think they can take shortcuts, but I always find out. Everyone turned to look at me. My face went hot and red. Wah! She made me retake the entire test right there in front of the whole class while everyone watched. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the pencil. My best friend Michael was sitting 2 desks away and wouldn't even look at me. I finished the test in 20 minutes, got every single answer right again. Mrs. Palmer looked at my paper and her face got tight and angry. She didn't apologize. She just put the test in her desk drawer and told me to sit down. I thought that was the end of it, but 2 days later, my parents got called in for a meeting. I sat outside the classroom while Mrs. Palmer talked to them for 45 minutes. When they came out, my dad wouldn't look at me. Mom had this disappointed expression I'd never seen before. In the car, my dad finally spoke. He said, "Mrs. Palmer thinks you've been cheating all year. She says someone must be doing your homework for you." I tried to explain that I actually liked math and spent hours doing extra problems from the library, but my mom cut me off. She said, "Why would a teacher lie about something like this?" Mrs. Palmer told them she'd been teaching for 15 years and could always spot a cheater. She suggested holding me back a year because clearly the work was too advanced for my actual level. My parents agreed right there in her classroom. Yeah, we spent that entire summer knowing I'd be repeating 4th grade while all my friends moved on to 5th. Michael stopped calling me. Kids from school would see me at the park and whisper. My parents watched me do homework every night like I was a criminal. They'd check my answers and quiz me to make sure I actually understood. The worst part was I could see them wondering if I was really their smart kid or if it had all been fake. Something broke in me that summer. Yeah. When 4th grade started again, I stopped trying. Why bother if nobody would believe me anyway? I failed tests on purpose just to prove Mrs. Palmer right. If she thought I was stupid, then I'd be stupid. I stopped raising my hand, stopped doing extra credit. My grades tanked, and my parents just nodded like they'd expected it all along. By middle school, I was getting D's and F's. High school was worse. I ditched classes and hung out in the parking lot. Dropped out at 16 with no diploma and no plan. My parents barely fought it. I think they'd given up on me years earlier. I worked dead-end jobs for the next 12 years. Grocery store stalker, fast food, warehouse work. I lived in a tiny apartment and told myself this was just who I was. Not smart enough for anything better. Then 3 years ago, I was bored at 2 in the morning and started watching coding tutorials on YouTube. Something about it made sense to me. The logic, the problem solving. It felt like those math problems I used to love. I spent every night after work teaching myself to code, built small projects, then bigger ones, applied to junior developer jobs, and finally got hired at a startup. Worked my way up. Last year I switched companies and now I make $180K as a senior software engineer. Last month I was walking through the mall near my old neighborhood buying a laptop when I saw her. Mrs. Palmer. She was older now, gray hair, shopping with a woman who looked about 30. I almost kept walking, but something made me stop. My hands started shaking just like they did during that test. I walked up to her and said, "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Palmer?" She looked at me confused and said, "Yes." "Do I know you?" I said, "You were my 4th grade teacher. You accused me of cheating on a math test. You told my parents I wasn't smart enough and convinced them to hold me back a year." Her face went completely pale. The woman next to her, who I realized was her daughter, said, "Mom, what is he talking about?" Mrs. Palmer started stammering. She said, I taught so many students. I'm sure there was a reason." I pulled out my business card and handed it to her. It had my name, my title, senior software engineer, the company logo. I said, "You told me I was a cheater. You made me repeat 4th grade. I dropped out of high school because of you. Then I taught myself to code and now I make more money than you ever did as a teacher." Her daughter looked at the card, then at her mom with this expression of shock and disgust. Mrs. Palmer's hands were shaking as she held my card. She whispered, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean." I cut her off. I said, "You just didn't think you'd ever have to face it." I walked away and didn't look back. But here's the thing that really messed me up. It wasn't just the accusation or being held back. It was that my parents believed her over me. It was watching myself become the failure everyone expected. Those 7 years I lost before I found coding. That's what really messed me up.